All right, so we are on Canvas and you've already watched the first video. This is the start of my content for this section. And we are downloading the 1.3.2 combining data more on pivot table starter file. So we're going to download that and jump into this file. So when you open this up, it looks like this. We have three different tabs here. The first tab is the same data that you worked with in the previous video. We have company sales data about some clothing items. And then on the second tab, we have the master data. And then on the third tab is the reports, where we will be creating some of our own reports. So this data, though, is a little bit different. If you notice, we only have company code, customer code, and product code in the actual data table itself, which is an Excel table called sales. But the rest of the kind of lookup information is going to be in the master data tab. So this is a very common data structure where you have the kind of raw data in one table, and then the lookup, kind of the unique identifiers, in a different table with what it maps to. So the problem that we face is the report we want to generate, which is the same one that you ended the last video with, needs information from both tables. So we need the sales information, which is in the sales data, but we also want the customer name, which is in the master data. So we're going to be introducing one way to solve this problem, and that is with XLOOKUP. So the first thing that we're going to do is create a new column. So we're just going to do this for customer and product. We will leave the company for you to do as an exercise. So we're going to create a new column in our table, and we will call this customer name. And what we are doing is we are mapping this customer code to this customer code, and we want to bring in the customer name information. That's what we're trying to do. So the way we're going to do that, as I mentioned, is with the function called XLOOKUP. So XLOOKUP is our function. The lookup value, this is the cell immediately to the left for this case. So it's the value that we're going to be looking for elsewhere. Where we are looking for it is in the customer code table. That is going to be, try that one more time. So the lookup value and then a comma. The lookup array is where we are looking for this value. And then the return array is what value gets returned once it finds it. So in this case, I want to find the row right next to it, the column right next to it. So I'm going to highlight the names, and we can ignore the other arguments. We can close the parenthesis, click enter on that, and we see that this automatically popped up with all of the correct names. So there we have it. We have officially combined these two little mini tables into bringing in this information. So let's try that one more time for the product code, where we will bring in the product description, and we'll also bring in the color as well. So here are the two more columns that we want to bring in. So again, the same exact pattern. So we're going to use XLOOKUP. The lookup value is going to be the code. So this is the unique identifier. Then a comma, where we want to find it. That is going to be the lookup array, which is in our master table. Comma, return array is going to be what we are going to use return for the matching product code. Enter, and there we have it. So let's try it one more time. This time, though, I'll just copy. And another good thing about tables, it is smart, and it knew that I still wanted to reference the product code. So now the only thing I have to change is, instead of returning the products table, which is this table here. Instead of returning the products table, product description, I just want to return the color. So if I come back to this formula and I can change the name here from product description to color, enter on that, and we see this result. So notice what is a little bit funky here. So the smartphone case diamond, this one brings in a 0 instead of a color. And if we look, it is because the smartphone case diamond is actually blank. So it turns out when XLOOKUP finds a blank, instead of returning what you would think would be a blank, it returns a 0. Turns out that when you are trying new formulas, new functions, you'll often run into a lot of kind of little mini problems. And this is an example of one of them. So I have linked to an additional resource where it goes over how to fix this. So a lot of times, like I said, when you're searching for solutions, make sure that you can understand the solution before you can apply it. So running into a lot of mini problems, right? A lot of times there will be a solution out there. Just make sure that you can understand it, you know what's going on before you use it in the homework and the labs. But that is what the resources are out there for, so feel free to search when you run into any issues. Now you might ask yourself, if the master table is looked at like this, I have the product code and the description and the color, why couldn't I just bring in both of these at the same time as the return array? Well, let's go ahead and try that. So let me get rid of these two formulas. So we'll try XLOOKUP, same lookup value, same lookup array, but now our return array will specify both the product description and the color. We'll see what happens. This one actually gives us a spill error. And it turns out that because we are in an Excel table, right, it's formatted as a table, that you can only return one value. But if we try this same exact formula outside of our table, so just repeating the same process. Extra period in there. If I repeat the same process, then it does work. It still, though, brings in the 0 as mentioned, but bringing in more than one value is possible when you're outside of a table. So that is a feature that we will be taking advantage of later. So for now, let's go ahead and undo this a few times. And we don't need the color for the rest of the activity. So the rest of this video in this section, this will be one of 3 videos, is going to cover the reports. XLOOKUP was one way to solve this problem. Another way we could have solved this problem is via pivot, power pivot, and data models, which is a really cool feature in Excel, but unfortunately it's only available in the Windows version of Excel. So I've also linked to that in the additional resources. So this data models and power pivot is another solution to this problem of wanting to create a pivot table from multiple tables. And this one actually allows you to create the pivot table. It pulls from 2 separate tables rather than having to combine the information like we did and how we are going to. So a lot of learning new technology is just knowing what is possible and then deciding if it's useful for your specific application. So I thought it was still cool and worth mentioning. And a lot of companies all have Windows version of Excel for the most part. So this will likely be available to you in the future if this is something that you come across. So we will pick up with the next video, creating our report from this table.